And then hit record. Oh, you're already recording.
Yeah, I know, but I could start at any time. Just
we'll
tired.
edit this out.
Matt's tired too.
Fix it in post. Yeah, I'm smoked.
All right, are you guys ready for the pre-podcast breathing session?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's do a pre-podcast breathing
All right,
session.
go ahead
I need
and kick us off.
Oh, yeah. So you want to breathe in a double inhale through the nose? Rinse your whole body. Oh, let that stuff go. This is
Wait,
actually...
what's a double inhale?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
I'm going to try to do
You
it.
heard her.
Both nostrils?
She stopped and then started.
Oh, it's like a quick one and a long one?
Quick and... Or just two. I'm not... I'd say... Only because I've heard monks do it.
Your face looks funny when you do
We
that.
do it at our church and
Hey, but
before
now
we
I have to
meditate
know
at
why two?
Yeah, if you do any kind of breath work, it's all
always
made
two.
up.
No,
I've
this
never heard
is
that.
coming
I mean-
from my guru, who's officially from India.
I mean,
so that's
I've
legitimate.
acting
Just
school
kidding.
50 years
That's
ago.
the credential to be
Yeah.
a guru is be from India.
From
Like
India.
a real one.
It's good.
That and God's got to kind of have his word in it and ordain it. Okay, let's now that we've done breath work, I'm ready.
Quantum.
Dang it, I can never get this right. Maybe I didn't hit something.
You sound like
What?
you got it right.
It just said quantum and you cut it off. What are you trying to get right?
She can't hear it. That's the problem.
Quantum
How did I end up doing
bomb.
this? Oh, I cut my own self off. Wow, how many times did I do that? Perfect start to episode 4. Hey, welcome to Quantum Bombs. Wonderful brother who knows quite a bit about cryptocurrency has us now set up where you can support us on a lot of the podcasting apps via streaming us Satoshis. And we'll get more into that in the future as I learn more about it myself. But you could find anything out about us on our website. I'm going to kick off with quick intros because these intros are a kind of a buzzkill on all podcasts, but yet sometimes needed in case you're listening to us for the first time. So there's 4 of us at this table. I'm surrounded by 3 lovely gentlemen. Today I'm going to start off with Rex. Rex is our history buff.
I think I have to say Rex myself so they know that my voice, since most people aren't watching it.
Yeah. You went back to...
Go forward to the mic.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay,
I went
sorry.
back to amateur hour. Rex, please say hi.
Hi, I'm Rex.
Okay, Rex, like myself, has spent quite a bit of time in L.A. He's an actor, and he's spent the last 12 years in the UXO industry, unexploded ordnance industry, where he goes around the world cleaning up dangerous bombs. And now he's also works here with Matt and I, my brother across the table from me. Say hi, Russell.
Yeah, my name is Russell Hagendorf. I'm into finance and real estate, and yeah, and Beth likes to say I'm into Web3 and stuff like that, but I haven't claimed any of that yet because I'm really just a Bitcoiner, and we haven't talked about it on the show, but I'm not really sure what belongs on a blockchain and whether these other coins are going to make it or not. So anyway, so I feel like, yeah.
I'm just really happy you took initiative to tell us about yourself. Last week I tried, and I ended up having to tell everybody about y'all. So that's nice.
Well, I feel like the whole introduction thing is the Hollywood coming out in you. For those that don't know, Beth's been involved in Hollywood quite a bit and TV shows. And you don't get introductions as much on podcasts.
Oh,
They just
thank God, because I'm so sick of doing them.
just think about Rogan. Think about
Cut
ones
to
on
it.
Rogan. They just start talking. Sometimes he actually doesn't do an introduction. You're just like, who is this person?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. So Russell is my brother. As you could see, we like to go back and forth all the time about stuff. You did mention, though, that you'd like to be known, because I'm working on our website bios, as an aspiring vagabond and a mushroom expert, but there was a word you gave me.
An aspiring fungal philosopher. Yeah, so
Fungal philosopher.
I'd much rather be talk about like my ass. Well, like
Your ass?
so. My background is I
Burgers.
have a background in engineering, and for the grown up jobs I've done has been engineering and a fake geologist, and like that's boring to talk about. So I was like, well, and then I'm involved in financial markets and real estate, and that's what I like to talk about. So if you hear me steering the conversation in that direction, that's why. But
So what's the fungal connection?
I was telling Beth the other day that I'd much rather talk about, instead of my background, my aspirations, and my aspirations are to be a fungal philosopher.
Yeah, and actually
This
there's
cool name.
quite a bit of topics. I don't even want to ruin it because I quickly want to tell you what it was about, Rex, but we'll save it for another podcast.
This title I got from Terrence McKenna. He's dead now, but he's got some, that quote I sent you that you really said was deep. that was his.
The best
He's got some
quote,
really,
yeah.
really good. I think he's the one that came up with the stoned ape theory. Anyway, yeah.
Beth,
was like,
I
man.
think you have a T-shirt that's fungal philosopher with mushrooms in the middle of it.
Me?
Yeah, because you sell T-shirts.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're on me selling T-shirts, you could always support me at Beth.tv. Each week, I'm pumping out only one design a week, but I've got about 50 in my brain. Check out Matt's for those that are actually watching the show. Russell, I'm looking for that quote you gave me. You can't bring up a quote that good without us sharing it with our audience.
You're going to read it?
Well, I'd love to, absolutely. Do you mind finding it while I introduce Matt here, and Matt introduces himself?
Oh, I'll buy you some time. I'm Matt Barnett. I like chemistry and being in nature, long walks on the beach.
There you
That's
go.
me.
So he's a chemist, explosives expert, and he owns his own explosives company. Yeah, let's get to that quote, Russell.
Well, I sent it to you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. No, I seriously, I searched it. And
That's
wasn't
what the
finding
signal that I just signaled to
Oh,
her.
I thought you said you found it. Okay, so guys, here's an epic quote by, who's it by, Russell?
What's at the bottom?
Oh, Terrence McKenna. Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under. It will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemic, so help me somebody, alchemical gold.
Yeah.
This is what they understand. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done, by hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a feather bed.
Where'd you get that from? Is that from the book The Alchemist?
Well, it's literally Terrence McKenna. I looked the
His
quote
hero.
up, and you know how have you ever looked up quotes? It's like kind of scattered.
Yeah.
But what is the alchemical gold?
That was their goal was to make gold, the metal, from lead. So alchemists, which is the beginning of chemistry, they call it alchemy. They didn't understand elements like we do today, and they would believe that they could take lead, which was a very heavy metal, and it convert it into gold through certain processes, heating it up, mixing things with it, adding sunshine or fire and the element of water and all these things. They were trying to make gold. That was their holy grail.
So the metaphor is that who really touched the ability to create abundance and wealth out of lead in this metaphor. So that's what it means. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I understand the quote better now. So yeah.
Huh. I probably didn't read it as well as I could have. Like reading it in my head quietly, I understood it more than just
I
reading
thought
it
you-
It's
out
like the
loud.
unobtainable gold, and you'd be able to obtain
Well,
it.
I think the reason it's that and not just gold is because wouldn't it be because you can make
You can make it.
it from
Yeah.
you can create it
Right.
from a lesser metal. Yeah.
That's common,
Yeah,
which would drive the price down. Right.
indeed.
All right, and lastly, I'm Russell's sister, Beth Hagendorf. I'm a TV creator. What that means, I like taking television concepts and developing them. I'd be known as a developmental producer in the Hollywood world. I do mainly non-scripted shows on science and travel. I say science because a lot of the stuff we film is explosive related, but right now I'm focusing on my YouTube channel, which is all about spirituality explained for the average Joe. Despite all the gloom and doom topics we talk about in the podcast, my YouTube's quite opposite of that, and you get a much more softer side of me, which we're going to try to put more into our podcast. And yeah, now I'm focusing on producing this podcast and just trying to bring good content to the world. Today we have some heavy topics because we are coming out of I think the Texas school shooting was yesterday, and we will get to that. Because I'm assuming a lot of people would like to know what someone sitting in a room that does have some guns around them has to say, and try to look at that from a different standpoint, being that there's been so many gun shootings, and we always hear the same narratives. But first, we'll talk about something softer, I think, and this is something that my brother and I kind of argue about back and forth, but it is spiritually related, guys. And I'm a big fan of Abraham Hicks. She kind of changed my life, along with my spiritual counselor, who I was fortunate to see, every other Saturday when I lived in LA, and really just changed my life in regards to how to think. I realized everything I was programmed to think, actually every single thing about society and what I could think of really worked against being a successful person, both personally happy and successful with abundance and financial gains. So the topic I'm talking about is really manifesting a life that you love and that you're happy with, and that it just permeates from the inside out. And it's on law of attraction, which is what Abraham Hicks is about. Check her out. She's a fantastic lady. Her name's Esther Hicks, and she goes under the name of Abraham Hicks when she's speaking. But my brother always points out, like, you're doing that airy-fairy law of attraction stuff, which he actually believes in most of what I'm saying. But he always thinks that what I mean by that is just sit on the couch and think happy thoughts. And that's not how you get things to come to you. So I just kind of like wanted to open up the floor, because all four of us here are, I think, pretty heavily, oiled in spirituality, or however you want to say it.
So your question is, or your topic is, what are the mechanics of the law of attraction, assuming there is something there? Is that right?
Yeah, I guess so, because I don't know. It comes out much easier when we're just arguing about it, but that's it. That's what
Are you implying that there's not something to the law of attraction? You're a naysayer?
I think there's definitely something there to it, for sure. But I think that a lot of people think the mechanics are, like she said, where they can just sit around and manifest stuff in the physical, in the meat space, without taking action and just thought alone.
But I don't think that's in any of the teaching. No one teaching it would ever go that route.
Some do.
Would they really?
Well, Abraham Hicks would, yeah. And see, that's like this fun line that we get to talk about right now is, yeah. I mean, life should be easy. Life is easy. Like, according to Abraham Hicks, yeah, effort should never be put forth. In fact, don't even put forth effort if you're not feeling it. But there's a deep science to that. So that's kind of like what I wanted to explore. And yeah, I mean, yes.
Can we talk about Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks and how they're related?
Yeah, I could quickly explain that.
Unless you don't want to. Some people might think it's a way to discredit.
Yeah, that's why I don't say it, because
Okay,
it
well, don't
discredits
then.
her. I think I'd rather just let people go out. And I found her on YouTube. But, I sign up every chance I can to go see her in person. But, yeah. So, Russell thinks you can't just sit on the couch. I think a calibrated person, though, that is emanating positivity and can bring to them what they want. But there's so many other things they're fundamentally doing right already, that things are already working out for them. And Matt, open up your mouth. I mean, I know you're...
Well, I'm just trying to listen
well-versed on this.
to everybody, but my thoughts are, when somebody here said the machine or mechanics, that's what you said. I see it as two-part. You have the gears in an engine, and then you have oil that keeps it from eating itself. You getting up every day and doing something are the mechanics. You like farming, so you get up every day and you till the field and you plow the field and you plant because you like to do it. That's the mechanics. The way you think is the oil that keeps it cool and keeps it from burning itself up and brings profitability to it. If you told me that I could just sit on my bed and just imagine all these wonderful things that could come to me, I actually am more in that camp than not, but I don't want to sit on my bed. I genuinely don't want to. I want to do. I want to experience and go and see and be a part of something and have hands-on. And it's by doing that, I get rewarded. I get this euphoric feeling of moving towards my goal. I heard the definition of success was the progressive advance towards a worthy ideal. That's success. It's not reaching something. It's not having billions of dollars in the bank. You could marry somebody whose father had a business and walk into millions of dollars. That does not make you successful. It makes you lucky. It makes you rich. Those things are true. But you're not successful. You're successful when
We're talking about manifestation.
Yeah. And so, well, but that's success, right? And manifesting something, creating something. What does the word manifest mean?
Money.
Yeah, it means
to bring about.
Bring about by thought.
Well, more specifically, we're talking about, I thought you were trying to get in the mechanics of it rather than just the general concept of it.
On his farming comment, I would say, so if the farmer's happy tilling the soil, while he's tilling the soil, the other items in his life that he wanted are being worked out by the universe. So most of the work is happening when you're in some type of happy meditative state. That could be while you're swimming, while you're painting, while you're driving. Actually, Rex would love this, while you're driving a car, in a zone of neutrality or neutral to positivity, right? And anytime you're from neutral and downward, you're actually going against the grains of the law of attraction. Now you're actually attracting whatever it is that you're being pessimistic about.
You get what you think about. At the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to say. I guess I'm going a long way there, but you get what you think about. And we are designed, I believe, to be creators. And we're happiest when we're creating. And it's not just with our hands. We create far more with our mind and our thoughts.
We're talking about why do we get what we think about.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole.
Yeah, I thought that's what the deepest question is, because I used to think it was when you're thinking about a problem and you're trying to solve it, when you're actually not thinking about it, like in between the times that you are thinking about it, your subconscious is actually trying to find a solution for you. And we've learned in recent years how powerful our subconscious is. And so when we can develop a solution to achieve the goal or get the problem solved to get to our goals. And I used to think that's how the law of attraction or the mechanics of the law of attraction works. But I actually think now there's more of the sit on your bed and manifest stuff going on. And the proof is that in quantum mechanics, now it's been ever since What the Bleep Do We Know? It's probably like 15, 20 years old now, where that was first mainstream thing that came out and said that consciousness or our thoughts can influence the real world. And the way they did that was with a random number generator, and they could someone could skew the random number generator in the direction that would be statistically impossible repeatedly.
Yeah.
And so this means our thoughts have an impact on the actual physical world. And I feel like I
have an answer for your question.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Well, it's heavy, but it's short. And the short of it is, I believe that we're in the mind of God. Like everything that is a thought, and we are thoughts within a thought. And the reason we get what we think about is because that is what drives all creation. And so we're inside of a giant thought, but we have free will and we have the power to create. And the way at its most fundamental level, the way to create is by thought. And so we're in nothing but the most important thing in this existence is thought, not what you see.
Yeah, it's everything you said is probably just semantics. It could be found in probably 100 different teachings, but like the vocabulary is different. You know
yeah, I did
mean?
it in Matt, but I'm sure it's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like the vocabulary you use can either get a religious person to agree with you or offend them.
Oh,
if you use scientific terms, you could be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you use scientific terms, the religious person would be offended. And if you use the spiritual, they're saying the same thing, just in different vocabulary.
Well, offense is not my concern. That's just my thought.
Yeah, but I actually like Russell's point. He's saying what you're saying could also be said different, like the thought matrix.
Oh, absolutely.
I get it. You're talking about the thought matrix of God.
Well, that's such what'd you say? We're a thought within a thought.
Yeah, we're
yeah.
all
That's
in
such a
God's
hard
thought
thing to
world.
get your mind around. It's
Well, is it really? And here's an example.
And I'd like to say this can all be explained on my spirituality YouTube.
Dun, dun, dun,
I actually
dun,
do teach you about the thought matrix and everything on my Eternal Being episode. But what were you going to say, Matt?
My example is pretend you're an author and you're writing a book, and it's May 25th, 1875. And you're writing about a character named Sarah, and you could write this whole story, right? You're totally capable of writing all that, but you're not capable of giving that character in that story free will. But imagine if you could, and there you would find your thought within a thought. And so if you imagine you write a really good book, and millions of people are reading your book, and they're in that story. You've created this world, Lord of the Rings, whatever it is. People are in it. There's all kind of nerds getting together, deciding, what the background story is. But imagine, take that to a God level where you can give those characters not only know the spin of every atom in that world, but give those characters free will. And now you have thought within a thought.
A real picture show.
Yeah. We can't do it. but God's infinite. And the scientific explanation of this is the same thing you're talking about. We can see the beginning of it. We don't fully understand it for sure, but we can see the signs scientifically because it's true. And even the plant experiment, they put a plant in the corner of a room.
Yeah, that's
and
where
they
I was
had a
going.
random light
Yeah.
shining around, and the light no longer went random. It actually, the bigger percentage went to that plant. There's
light,
something
yeah.
going on that we can't see, we don't understand.
Just
So-
saying that the plant affected the light?
Yes.
Yeah, so it chose like the light being a robot still knew to shine on the plant's corner more than the other corners.
Does that mean the plant has a consciousness?
That's what
The
they.
plant
I
yeah.
think that's what they took away.
It
Yeah.
taught
It
the
could at
light
least
to come
affect
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what Russell said earlier is something I'm currently exploring. I can't do a video on it yet, but you know, I was reminded how powerful the subconscious is. So while we are working on manifesting things into our life that we want more of, I think it's up to 98% is determined by our subconscious. We're running on a subconscious program. So until you can really permeate and change your subconscious, positive thoughts help, but it's like helping 2 to 10% of the equation. So that's something I'm actually working on right now and reading some books on.
My biggest problem with it is that the most important thing is the doing, the do. You have to actually get off the couch and do something, and that's why I don't like the law of attraction type people that
Like me.
that's all they focus on and they don't take action. You have to be balanced. You have to actually take action, and that's why I think like if you combine like if you combine it with taking action, and then if you assume that your consciousness in the law of attraction is at worst giving you like 65% odds on a coin flip every time you take a chance that's like open, every time you do something that's open to chance, your odds are just slightly in your favor, and you repeat that over and over again, that's a huge edge. You could make a very good living on Wall Street with an edge like that. So that's why anyone who's achieved like really high amounts of success is either knowingly or unknowingly using the law of attraction. And I think that is.
And I think they're doing too.
Yeah, I'm still kind
Yeah.
of confused by the idea that you say people don't. I mean, you can't sit down on your couch and do it. And I've never heard anyone. He said maybe people who do say that.
Well, I've
But it's
done
like-
some of that actually. I've
Actually,
sat on a
yeah.
couch.
Well, no,
and
absolutely.
brought
But
things,
you've got it. My life has been serendipity. I mean, you just have to be open to. You got to be moving, but then you see something. For instance, you talked about UXO. I did a career for 12 years that I didn't know existed 6 months before I started it. I mean, it's going along. So, well, that sounds interesting, and went that direction. I mean, but it's like, but you have to be moving, and I just can't imagine anyone thinks that you can just sit. Yeah, you have to take your say meditation moments or whatever, and do your creativity, but you've got to be out and moving for the things to come in your path to find them and to happen.
I think
Yeah,
you can.
I would say you attracted the UXO in your life primarily because
You're friends with
you
me.
had a desire for what it supplied, but most importantly, there was no tension on that desire because you didn't know anything about it. Now, had you knew like, oh, in 2 weeks you're going to have an interview for this life-changing job that you want, you're going to add tension. Now, you may still get the job, but most things we manifest, it's something that in the direction of what we want, but yet there's not a lot of tension for it. And I think the only other point I want to point out, if you could take away anything from law of attraction for like the very few people on listening that actually haven't gotten into this subject, because this subject is, like Russell said, that we're talking about it because it's permeated culture, but it's more it sounds like just sit on the couch and think what you want, you get what you want. It's not that. And the word, I think if you could just replace the word think with feel.
Yeah.
And that's what all the people that's like, oh, what the secret left out. And they did, I think, in the first one. And this is what I've learned through counseling and is how you feel and actually sitting with it. And actually, this sounds corny, but now how does it feel in all parts of your body? Like spend some time with, like for me, one of my big goals that I hope to do is shoot a television show about castles in Europe, right?
Well,
I've got to actually sit down and really think, like learn how to feel what that feels like. Now start living in the joy of what that feels like. Because if my body doesn't know how it feels, I can't attract it into my experience.
I can give an example that everybody listening can relate to. I wanted to say that when people want something, they act on it because they want to. Feels good because it's what they want to do. So I don't think there's a whole lot of people just sitting on the couch manifesting because they're like, I want to do this stuff. So they start doing it, having fun with it. And it goes back to the feeling that she's talking about. But the example I want to give that everybody here can relate to, I just saw it happen. My wife is chasing this fly around the house, right? This fly is flying around. She gets the bug assault gun out. It's about to shoot this sucker. And she lays the gun down, and she goes and sits down at the table and picks up her drink, and immediately the fly shows up. And she goes, oh, I knew as soon as I laid that down, that fly would show up. And it hit me. I was over there like cutting something up, and it hit me, and I said, everybody can relate to that. We just know as soon as we lay this down, something's going to show up. As soon as we sit down to eat, the phone's going to ring. We know these things. I said, but have you noticed that everybody's been programmed for this, for the negative? But when you feel that feeling, when you feel that same feeling, but it's positive, you get the same result, and you get to choose. It takes a lot of programming, but when you say, I can feel, dude, I'm about to get an email and make $1 million. It'll happen. But it doesn't happen with you just saying it or thinking it or believing it. You feel it the same way you know that damn fly is going to show up as soon as you sit down, but it's on the positive. You go, oh my God, I'm fixing to get an email for $1 million. And you get the email for $1 million. But you have to be there on the positive side, because whether it's $1 million or a fly showing up is inconsequential.
Let's not forget you took action to have the email show up as well.
Yeah, to your wife's point, that's called you can't get there from there, meaning like if you're looking for your lost keys, you're not going to find your keys until you stop looking for your keys, at least in a frantic like you just got to chill and then it'll fall into place. I do want to say, so I guess back to my castle, it's a perfect example of, yes, I'm not sitting on the couch hoping someone would invite me to be a part of their production or vice versa, however I make the TV deal work. On my couch, I mean, I'm out shooting reels. I'm out creating the space of hey, I'm a castle expert, or hey, networking with production companies, etc., abroad or whatnot, whatever it will take. So there is action implied. I'd like to think, I guess for the smaller manifestations, Russell, I think it kind of goes back to Rex's point. Like if you're just a happy person and you have a desire and it's kind of unspecific, and you're a happy person, I do think it'll come into your space just by naturally living.
Well, there's only one person I've ever known who literally made an effort to poo-poo the law of attraction, said it was all BS, and it was one of the best manifestors I'd ever known. And I think year one, and this guy's the other one, someone I worked with in Austin. And it was funny because I said the reason he thought it was BS is because he did it naturally. I mean, I worked on 6th Street. I worked on 6th Street, and every day, you know what that's like, and every day at work, he would drive up, and thereed be a parking space right in front of him every single day.
He pre-paved that parking spot. That's what it's called.
Well, but the fact of the matter is, but he said, he used to joke, he would say, he'd call it think it and he will come, was what he jokingly called the law of attraction. But I said to him, you don't believe it because you've just naturally have that ability. It's just in you. Most people have to learn it.
Yeah.
But I think the best illustration of the law of attraction for people that aren't really aware of what it is let's say you take a neutral person, and by neutral, you have a scale of the enlightened Buddha, that, your guru, and then down here you got the guy that just went and wanted to spread so much toxicity, went and killed a bunch of people in a school. If that's your scale of extremes and you have someone right in the middle, and you take that person in the middle that's in neither side, and they get up in the morning and they stub their toe. Now that small little negative thing that happened to them, that negative thing they're going to allow that to affect the rest of their day, because that's just going to create a chain of negative events. And they're going to go get their coffee and they're going to spill some, they're going to drop a glass. You see what I'm saying? Like, and people have bad days like that. They let bad days unfold that way. And I think, to me, that's the best illustration.
It is perfect.
Yeah.
Because they had the option to say, silly me, I stubbed my toe.
They could have laughed at it.
Yeah.
They could have laughed at it and went on about their day.
No, I actually did. I remember leaving the house once when I lived in L.A. It just came to mind, and I was just livid, and I was all pissed off and whatnot. And I was about to get on the freeway, and I'm waiting for the light to change to get on the freeway. And the entrance was right there. And as soon as the light changed, a utility truck came and parked right in front of the entrance. Right when it changed, I was about to go and just stop. And the guy gets out of his truck, he starts to work. But you know what I did? I turned around the corner and I parked my car on the side of the road and said, just stop. Because I knew that if I didn't change my frame of mind, that was going to happen all day long. Right. To your point, because I knew that was me. I mean, it's just like, I could have cursed him all day long, but I went, man, that was all me, just making him pull up in front of me. Just, the timing was perfect. So anyway, I think, it's funny. Have you ever seen the movie Powder?
Yeah, that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, but one of the most, it was subtle, but it was so incredible, was that at the very end when he's running and he's being chased by 4 people, all 4 people are at different levels of their spiritual development, from your guru all the way down to the sheriff who's kind of on the edge of getting it, to the totally ignorant sheriff behind him. And when powder becomes energy and cuts through them, they all have such different reactions. You've got Goldblum, who just basks in the splendor of this experience. You got the sheriff who's about to get there, who bursts into tears because he's just experienced this spiritual event that he doesn't quite know, but he gets it. Then you have the other sheriff who's just kind of going, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah.
And I thought it was just a wonderful example of people at their different phase of their journey and how they respond to when things happen to them.
Well, I would say that up until now, the most successful year of my life financially started with being robbed and swindled. And as I was telling Rex earlier today, we were talking about something similar. I let myself feel the initial immediate feeling. I mean, somebody robs you and you're angry right away. Feel it and then let it go. And then the guy swindled me. And, you get all these images of like beating this guy up and taking your money back. And you feel it. It's okay to feel things. It really is. But they're passing through. You don't have to hold on to it. That's the other side of the coin. And I had a thought come over me where I said, this that was just taken from me pales in comparison to what I'm about to receive. And I did not come at it from top down. I didn't say, if I have this thought and I say this, then I'm going to get rich. I had that thought comes from somewhere I cannot explain. It was spoken to me. What was just taken from you pales in comparison to what you're about to receive. And I went around and I told people beginning of that year, I'm going to make X amount of money. I'm going to make X amount of money. And by damn if I didn't make it.
Well, but what you were doing was you were actually monitoring your thoughts. And I think that's where a lot of people have trouble getting started is you said it somewhere in there. You said that you felt a certain, you can feel it, but you were at least aware that you were feeling it.
Oh yeah.
You realize like your average person in road rage, driving down the highway, like they're not thinking like, they're not thinking, I feel really pissed right now. They just feel pissed. So they don't have the ability to have like a third perspective that's looking in on them and saying, look at this, I'm being an angry person right now.
Yeah.
But may I put in something that I've noticed and I've experienced quite recently, and I still haven't chosen to get over it. It's because it's you have that third person that observes it. You have to let go of the pleasure of the anger and the hate.
Yeah.
And because I've found that about myself. I know how to be happy. I just don't want to be yet.
Do
I'm
you
serious.
know why?
It's a big deal.
It's it's ingrained in your brain to think that way because I too suffer from the
Peptides.
same thing. It's validation because my biggest crux of getting over in my therapy was like waking up kind of in a negative mood and like I gave you an example before the show started. I got mad at my brother for the camera angle in the last episode. And I thought about it in my morning meditation and I drew it on a whiteboard for Matt and bitched about it and showed him how there's no other
So
angle.
I catch all this crap.
You thought
So-
about Russell screwing things up during your meditation.
Yeah,
That's-
no.
okay.
So actually, specifically because I meditate in the
I want to
morning.
meditate on that.
But yeah, and I remember she told me you could change that right now today, and I was like, oh no, this is how I was brought up, and this is like how I'm, saw my mom do it. No, yeah. So anyway, it's easier to be validated with our angry thoughts and we're justifying our existence, we're validating ourselves, and yeah, I'm still working on throwing it
My
out.
old guru used the analogy of a handful of rotten peanuts. You're standing in front of a buffet table and you've got this handful of rotten peanuts. And it's like, if you just drop the peanuts, you can take all this buffet. Be like, no,
that's a perfect-
I want my peanuts.
But-
Perfect.
I know
Think
my
this-
peanuts.
Yeah, I
I've
like
got
that.
this.
Do we not get addicted to our emotions? Like
You do.
if
Well,
we
that's- you
do.
go back to what the bleep do we know? I think is dealt with the whole peptides things that your brain is the hypothalamus is the most complex drugstore on the planet.
Yeah.
And we get addicted to associating with certain things.
We do. I have a story about that. It's too long for this, but I do want to share. Well, it is.
We're only laughing because if Matt says it's too long
You
for
know
this,
it's
we're
too
like,
long.
this is like could be
You
really
can-
long.
You can fix it in post.
Yeah, you fix it in post. I just want to tell a little story real quick about my sister because I think some people can relate. Well,
No. It's funny. That's set up. We're just laughing at
Yeah,
that.
now that everybody does want to know the story.
I
'cause-
think they can relate. I mean, you guys are siblings, and I have a sister who's 10 years older than me, and I've always looked up to her, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. If you have a brother or sister older, you I don't know, you just look up to them.
Meh.
And well, anyway, I wanted to spend time with my sister, so I got us a trip to Sicily, and we did. And we get back, and I put some pictures up on Facebook of me and my sister hanging out. And, you know, she gives me a phone call. She goes, hey, would you mind taking those pictures down, get them off of social media, the ones with her in it? And I immediately felt, I felt stupid because I felt like I did something wrong without asking. And it never occurred to me to say, hey, can I put the picture of us eating pizza up on Facebook? But she wanted it down, you know, so man, immediately, boom, I go and delete it. And of course, then all the pictures from my Sicily trip are me sitting at the beach, you know, and it looks weird. And it was a bummer. And then I go back on and I see where her husband has put up pictures with her. And that's fine, all over Facebook. But picture with me wasn't. And, you know, if she was sitting here right now, she would explain, oh, well, no, you know, what I meant was this, or, you know, whatever it was. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There was this weird victim feeling that I had, like, oh, man, doesn't want to be seen with me. But it's okay to be with her husband, but I'm her loser brother, right? And she's my big sister, so I'm always looking up to her. And so mentally, I'm always battling that, well, I'm never gonna measure up to her. And then one day I was sitting there thinking about it, and I go, this is icky. This is gross. It's this weird, nasty little comfort of a victim sitting there saying, woe is me, feel pity on me. I'm going to tell this sob story, and people go, oh, poor Matt. And while there's you
I'm laughing because it's just a picture on social media, but keep going.
Well, yeah, well, whatever. It's what I
But
felt. I'm
you're
talking
right.
about
Yeah,
it. And people can relate to this
That's
because
good.
people have brothers and sisters. So, or parents that they're trying to impress, whatever. But I let it go, and it felt so good. It's like, I know that my sister loves me. I know she does. And she had her reasons for whatever they were that they didn't want that on Facebook. And guess what? It doesn't matter. And the moment I let that go, I'm able to progress and move on.
So,
and if I ever want to know the next chapter, you got to be able to do that.
Isn't that just the ego that gets upset?
Absolutely the ego, but it feels good. It feels good. There's something about it, being that underdog. Whoa, what was me? You know, if I just had a woman to get in shape for, all this crap that I hear all the time from victim speech, but you hear it year after year after year. And if you ever want to turn the page in your life, you have to get out of that comfort
Well,
zone.
if I had to be your counselor, it's always like what I would do every time. You would take a situation, that's a perfect example, and you would write everything down on one side about why that upset you, what about her, whatever the situation upsets you.
My handwriting sucks.
The other
I couldn't read
side,
it.
other side of the line is 100% has, and then now you throw the situation out the door, and it's all these like not being seen, not being heard, not being loved enough. Those are, I mean, I'm trying to kind of, I think everything you were saying is basically like, love, seen, heard. So that's, and then that will come up in many other facets of your life over and over again. That's the work you need to do. So it never had, perfect example, like how therapy works. I'd go in there, you know, anybody can go in with any situation. And the hardest part is when they're like, okay, so let's take this person, like another person that stole money from me or something. You mentioned that. Let's take him out of the equation now, Beth. And I'm like, no, wait, but let me tell you more about this guy. And no, it has nothing to do with the guy. It's that I actually attracted this into my life. You attracted that situation in my life.
Now use it like a slingshot.
And back to what we're talking about, law of attraction. A rule of thumb is always, well, at least my personal beliefs is there is no assertion in life. There is only attraction. And people don't like hearing that because you can name a lot of different atrocities. And that goes into a much higher philosophical top in spirituality.
And thank God for all your failures.
There is no assertion. There is only attraction.
Yeah.
For everything.
And thank God
Good
for
and
your
bad.
failures and your tests and the times where you catch yourself being jealous, when you catch yourself being victim, icky. Because if you catch yourself being there, that's the opportunity to grow and move to the next thing.
Well, I need to make a decision, right? It's funny because you were talking about that. You mentioned it today, and I've been thinking about it all day because fairly recently, someone got over on me, very small amount. I got taken advantage of for a couple $100 in the little skin, but yeah, nothing. I mean, what you're talking. I know.
Well, for as little as I pay, that's a big deal.
Yeah, we won't go there. Thanks for throwing me completely off. Now, all right.
I'm
now,
with you, Rex. I'm upset if you lose $100.
No, but the fact of the matter is, though, I found out information about the person, and I've got certain little plots for nothing. I'll never get the money back, isn't that? But I have vengeance planned, and in my mind.
Oh, that's fun to do.
Exactly. but here's the thing, and from what Matt is saying, I know damn well that because of this thought, I'm just I'm stifling myself. But so here's my test.
And you're also feeding. I mean, yeah, we're doing that repetitive cycle.
Do I just and again, it's not about the money. I will survive even with what you pay because I also know where you keep a lot of stuff that I can sell. So it's
You can have it.
thanks. But it's not about the money. It's about it's got one over on
Being
me,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't matter. But I got to let go of that.
So hard.
And until it is hard. And that's what I'm talking
Really
about.
So
hard.
now you could tell that person, thank you for showing me this side of myself. And I know what I need to work on now. It sounds like with this one, you want to be right. Like that's usually behind being right, being heard, being just, being seen. Sure. So yeah. So one of my person that hurt me probably the most or significantly in my professional career, that therapist always like, I told her one day I had a dream about him. I hugged him and she goes, that's because you came here to earth. And she's like, y'all planned this, and you have more to thank him for than anybody else in your life because you have these significant life lessons
Like,
with
thanks
him.
for fulfilling your role.
Yeah, basically, it has nothing. It's like so we're supposed to thank the people that are hurting us because it's only showing us what we need to work on ourselves. Somebody else's stuff is none of our business.
It's not about them.
Isn't the common thread in all of these stories is that we're carrying what other people think of us, or we're carrying
and we're
how we're
attracting
perceived.
it. We're also attracting them to treat us that way.
Is it
We're
not-
getting what we think about.
I don't care what he thinks of me.
No, you may not be
I care
thinking
about
about
I
it.
care about my again. So you go back to ego. It's like there's part of me that's like, well, here all of life's questions are answered in the movies. Go back to Seabiscuit if you remember that movie at all. When Red Pollard is about to win the race, but the guy fouls him. And he totally forgets about the race, and he's like trying to run the guy into the rails, and he loses the race.
Right.
And when the owner and the trainer are like, "Why did you do that?" He goes, "He fouled me." He's like, "What am I supposed to do? Let him get away with it?" He says, "Yeah, when he's 40-1, yeah, you are." He's like, "But he fouled me."
Who
and
cares?
he can't get past. And they're all looking at him going, "What is that?" But it had nothing to do with it. It's his own angst, his own
Maybe
self-worth.
it's either childhood drama or
It was.
past
That's
life
what it came
drama
back to.
of someone not being there to say, I see you hurt. Yeah, Russell, I don't give a hoot what some people think of me, especially like one of these people was like an animator I hired, took some money of mine. I remember I was like, no, but like I wrote it in the email and I was very specific and I never got this. I don't care what that guy thinks of me, but yet there's some small part of my inner child or past life that's like wasn't coddled enough and didn't hear the like, I hear you, Beth.
Oh,
You are right, Beth. You're being validated.
You're
Beth.
allowing that negative vibration in, and there's a part of you that resonates with it.
Yes.
You haven't stamped it out yet.
Exactly. I haven't. And so now that we're into the psychology of all of this, I'll tell you the work that she had me do, it sounds so silly, but I've tried it now on different things in life, is I would sit in quiet and I would talk to my like younger Beth, but I really would try to give time and this sounds hokey, but create a space for my body going, okay, body, I'm going to sit with you in this feeling of like angst and anger and not being heard and not being validated, and literally just say, you don't have to go. You're not trying to push it out of your body. You're literally making space for it. You're just sitting there breathing. And until you've done enough, like people, I don't know, 50-50 less have done work with healers on just sitting with your body, it actually does work. Like, okay, I know I'm just sitting with my body and I'll think about my body parts and I'll breathe in and out and I'll say, you're heard, you're seen. It's okay to feel this way. And if you could actually, it's kind of odd, but muster up those feelings of pain or hurt or whatever it is and allow it to exist. That's kind of the idea of it. Allow it to exist. It then leaves because it's been acknowledged. That's why
let it go. Let it flow.
Yeah.
It's coming through.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's it. That's it. It's just sitting, holding the space for it. And then the more I kind of like just met your friend Matt and other people, I realized there is something to be said about holding space and allowing it to exist in your body, like your leg, your stomach. My therapist would have me go through my whole body and just address it. Like, hey, there's my calf. I'm feeling it.
Would she touch you?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm asking because I've
What
seen.
do you want? Dirty
No,
pictures?
she was
What is it?
absolutely
And she
fantastic. Yeah,
videotaped
she
it.
knew all kinds of
Look,
stuff.
I've
she
seen-
was brilliant. And I didn't pay her for this either. She was doing this out of the kindness of her heart. She coached young women.
So if you want to see what I'm talking about, on Netflix, there's it's called Heal, I believe, but she's literally like tapping their forehead as she's having her say things, and I was like, is she doing that to distract her? So she's, I mean, there could be a
energy
lot of,
work. Yeah, they do all
but if you
kinds of
watch
stuff.
it, it's really weird. But it wasn't just her forehead; she would tap different parts of her body. Like it
Yeah.
was weird. That's why I asked her that. So I
And
was
what
just
was she doing? Healing them?
as she
Same
was
thing.
she was walking her through childhood trauma. What?
Yeah, what's your friend's name?
Yeah, the one from-
Christelle.
Christelle does this. I'm like, all
which
four
was
of us have
phenomenal.
had Christelle, and all four of us can vouch for her.
Which I manifested her,
authenticity.
by the way.
She
Well, that-
was magical when she found my grandmother.
That was different.
No, seriously.
What
No,
she
she's
does
a
is
perfect
more-
body
Did
work
Did you?
example.
Oh, you.
I did.
yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
What she does is different in that it's not so much psychological. Whereas, like, what I'm talking about is she's walking her through her childhood trauma as she's like tapping different parts of her.
I see. I
and,
see.
It's more
Well,
psychological.
Christelle does.
finds it.
She
finds
lays her hands on my stomach and it moves it. She's like, "Oh, there it is," And man, I felt drunk when I woke up from that.
She's got the chi.
Yeah,
She's
No,
good.
the fact that she could find.
Where'd
things
she
in
find your
different areas.
grandma at?
It was like in the stomach or whatever.
the stomach.
I had
See, it's all about the body.
But I had talked about it, and she said, "No, I can't find your grandmother." Then she was like, "Oh, she's so nice." She says, "Oh my gosh," and she took care of you. I'm like, she was like, yeah. After my mother died, my grandmother did. She was like, "Oh," and she could see, and she said it was like a black spear that went from my grandmother to me into my stomach. It was like very visual, but she was phenomenal. But one thing I wanted to mention because I thought about it, you said probably don't remember, but there was one point, I don't know what inspired it, but you said to me, and it wasn't that long ago, you said, "Man, someone really hurt you at some point, didn't they?" And I don't remember what brought it up, but yet I remember it was like what you talked about, Beth. It was that there was something that was acknowledged. There was like this, and it's almost like, it's like, "He fouled me." And
Yeah.
it's like, what are you really mad at? It has nothing to do with the guy on the horse.
right.
And it turns out in Seabiscuit, it was his parents abandoning him during the Depression. And
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, it's something about when you just want people to know you're hurt,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
and once it is acknowledged, it's kind of a relief. It is.
What is it when, let's say, you're really upset about something, like a really big deal, and you feel so angry, and then someone comes and says, like, "Oh, hey, guess what? We found out that's not even true." But like the anger doesn't go away immediately. You're like still angry.
But there's
You're
also
like, but
there's-
still.
But there's chemicals to that too, isn't
Yeah.
there?
I don't relate to that.
Your
I'm
anger
not, I'm not trying to sound like a
dissipates.
douche, but no, I don't. If I'm angry about something and they go and I find out that it was completely gone, I feel like a wave of relief.
Depends on what
Here's
it
a
is.
perfect example of what Russell's talking about, though. So there's a yogi or just someone that's aspiring yogi sitting on a boat meditating, and he's really made some progress. And then all of a sudden, some assholes. Oh man, I cussed. Dang it! I'm trying to be better about that. Some
Dadgum buttholes.
some awful person's boat just rams right into his boat while he's meditating. He gets so angry, and then he opens his eyes, and it was a wind blown like a stray boat into his boat, like no one's on it. But the anger was, so the moral of the story is he was at peace in meditation, yet the anger still was inside him and was turned on that easy.
Like getting robbed.
So,
I got mad.
while you think you may not be angry in that situation, most of us, all of us humans, still have it. But that's the type of stuff we need to aspire to, which is like not to have the knee-jerk reaction of anger and everything. I mean, it takes a lot of practice. But
I'm just thinking about
I'm
when you
actually-
said that about us waiting up till 4 a.m, armed to the
gosh.
teeth,
Yeah.
waiting for them to come back.
okay,
Anyway,
I'm actually really proud of us. We did a lot of talk on yogi stuff, and we'll continue it on each podcast. But we have 2 other subjects we want to cover today. Should we jump into them? Or is there any other last thoughts? Because I know what it's like to have something good you want to contribute.
Well, there's a lot of political stuff going on right now, and I thought I would take this time to congratulate Joe Biden on being the first president ever in all of U.S. history to take direct issue with America's obesity problem. And America, if you guys don't know,
He
so
did?
America's one of the fattest, sickest countries in the world, and he's going out of his way to orchestrate caloric deficit for all of us.
Caloric deficit, food
hold
shortage.
it.
You bastards ain't gonna
he's
eat.
your brother, and I already know his sarcasm
Yeah,
better than you do.
I just put it 2 and 2 together that he's referring
He's
to
gonna
the
starve
food
y'all all thin.
shortage.
Exactly.
I'm good.
Look.
the Biden weight loss
Look,
program.
Abs.
Look, it's
Oh, sorry,
it's
Russell.
scientifically proven that if you have a
Oh, no.
caloric deficit, it can be used to lose weight. So abs are made in the kitchen, not in the gym.
That's
if
right.
You didn't know.
Hey, Russ.
Cook 'em up.
So diet is mostly, is mostly to do with obesity. And, for people that choose to go in a caloric deficit, they usually have success in losing weight. Well, we can't, how do you get the public to do that? Well, Joe Biden, he's a genius. He's playing like 3D chess. He's like, orchestrate a food shortage, and we're going to slim our country down.
Like
Actually,
cows.
that's going to segue us
We're
perfectly
gonna
into
be
our
hot in a
next
couple of
topic.
years.
You are right, Russell. We weren't ever going to have the discipline that Matt spoke about on episode 3.
1, 2, and 3.
You guys,
So, okay, so on that note, that's actually a perfect segue. He also like a 3D
this all
chess
stemmed
game.
from his group. We have a group message. This all stemmed from you saying something about.
Oh, you were talking about food shortage. I said I've been wanting to work on my
yeah.
abs.
This whole idea. That's where it comes from. Yeah, it's all Matt's idea.
Yeah, we spoke a little bit about food shortage on episode 3. Go check it out. I did edit quite a bit of it out of there. All right, so speaking of the 3D, chess game that Joe Biden's playing, we're going to play something from Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it really has to do with what's happening right now for us everyday people regarding just inflation and the buying homes and selling homes. Take a listen. It's only a few minutes long, and then I'm going to pose Russell a question. I think it's going to be really thought-provoking in regards to just what the heck's happening right now financially for the United States.
Guys, I bought a house. I'm going to make some money. I said, at the top of the frickin' market? Don't listen to your stupid real estate agent who tells you that, the price of real estate always goes up, because it doesn't. When I hear people coming up to me, the price of real estate going up, and they're jumping in to buy real estate right now, I don't say anything. And the reason is that people are just getting into the hype. All this credit, it's actually debt, credit and debt, pumping into this economy, trying to prevent this crash. And if inflation keeps going, I get richer. I am extremely happy. And I think Biden, I'm not Republican or Democrat, he intentionally wants inflation. That's why he shut down the XL pipeline. That's why he stopped drilling, to get oil prices up. When oil prices go up, you know, all these truckers in Ottawa screaming they can't get food to the table and all this, prices of food go up. Inflation keeps going up regardless of what's going on, just because the policies of the Biden administration, shutting down the XL pipeline, stopping drilling of oil, so the price of oil goes up. I watch all this, and meanwhile, these people are jumping out and buying real estate like there's no tomorrow, and I can't even talk to them. We're on a turning point. But please understand, ladies and gentlemen, inflation makes the rich extremely rich. The middle class will pay higher taxes, and the poor will get poor because they're the ones who can't afford that $25 Wagyu steak that my friends are selling. So that's why we're in the biggest critical turning points, and that's why I don't know how many years ago when I walked past Richard's book and Borders, and it says the dollar crisis. If you understand what's going on, the problem is the U.S. dollar. Because in 1944, it stopped being money. It just became the reserve currency of the world. And in 71, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. We're being set up right now, one of the biggest changes in world history. And so, I bought a property. What do you think? I can't even talk to him, because this, to me, is 2007 all over again, and then the repo market collapsed. 2008, the market collapsed, and back in 2008, this guy named Bernanke, I believe it was, could print money. And this is where we are today. You've got to wake up, ladies and gentlemen, because otherwise you're just this stupid little hog just driving to slaughter. So America is we're at, not just America, we're one of the biggest turning points in world history. And like, there was Rockefeller, one of those guys said is, when shoe shine boys are giving you stock tips, time to get out. And I was in Safeway the other night, and these people are coming up to me, I did what you said, I bought a rental property. And I came back home and I said to Kim, time to sell. It is so dangerous, but you can't talk somebody out of it because they drank the Kool-Aid. So that's why I'm really honored to have a dear friend, Richard Duncan, been friends for years. He helped Kim and I time the last turn back in 2008. We made fortunes because while everybody was selling, we were buying. And that time has come again. And so that's why please listen to what Richard Duncan has to say.
A few months ago.
Okay, so that's the first 3 minutes of The Crash Will Be Worse Than 2008, Robert Kiyosaki on the free investing channel. Russell, what made me, I guess go ahead.
It's so tacky to me when he talks about, or when anyone that's in the hard money camp talks about, it's time to sell and such and such. Well, that just implies you're getting back into the fiat currency. Well, you got to do something else. Like it's a hot potato. Like, you should sell your real estate, for dollars? And you got to do something else, right? I can't just keep the dollars. So I don't know. I just hate
No,
when
that's
Get
people
some
talk.
Satoshis,
It's
right?
a really good critical point because
He's old. He's old
he's
school. That
big
dude
in-
fought in the Vietnam War. I don't know how old he is, but you got to be pretty up there to do that. But
He's a proponent of Bitcoin.
he's got some. Yeah. that's true.
okay, so for the common folk, I mean, I heard that, and actually, I don't know the answer to that. So
The
let's
answer
try
to
to
what?
unpack. Let's try to unpack when we have inflation, the rich get richer, because he is saying that this inflation we're having right now is by design. Like the way he worded
all
it,
by
or it was
design.
edited, he said when it was by design that Joe Biden cut us off of the Keystone Pipeline. Like he made his case that this inflation is by design so the rich can get richer. How does that happen?
I
How
have.
does that
Can
even
I go
work?
first on that?
Sure.
And because I mean, I know you got an answer.
I don't know how much I even agree with it entire, like all of it. So, but yeah.
well,
go ahead.
I kind of do because I heard this from my in-laws, almost a year ago. He would buy these cheap houses, and he has a lot of cheap houses. And he said, I noticed when I first used to go buy these cheap houses, it would be me and one other guy at the tax sale. He said, now they hold it at a stadium. There's so many people. He said, the herd has figured it out. He said, it's time to shift. The herd's never right. The herd runs off a cliff every time. So he sees the meh going off the ship. He's always turning angle. And so I said, well, this is really good news. Start building your war chest, because don't get ready for the next play. Get ready for the play after that, which would be interest rates are going up. All other expenses are going up. My pay isn't going up. I can't make these payments. I'm being foreclosed on. I'm selling out. And now this thing starts tumbling, and people who have a war chest are sitting there just waiting like crocodiles at a water hole. Buy. They're gobbling it up.
But their
next to
dollars,
nothing.
regarding inflation, though, their dollar too is inflated.
But it's not. Look what's happening with silver. My dollar buys more silver now than it did
well,
months
that's
ago.
just silver's a commodity.
Okay, but let's look at the
that it
houses.
could be in
But they're saying the house prices are going to drop because people are going to be foreclosed on. There's going to be a flood of these things on the market, and people aren't going to be buying it because they don't have money because inflation has stolen their money.
House prices will drop in value. I'm not sure they will drop in nominal terms, meaning the price tag in dollars. I'm not sure they'll drop in that.
What happens when there's a bunch on the market and nobody's buying? They all get foreclosed. You have these whole subdivisions back in 2008 that were sitting there, the people all foreclosed on. They're just like sitting there.
Yeah. So a deflationary event like that you're talking about, I don't think that the federal, everything, a guy, so Jerome Powell gets on stage and says a few things and it controls the whole financial world, right? So,
well, some things the value's high, some things it's low. Ammunition fluctuates, goes up and down politically, mostly. Houses, if there's a huge market, a supply of
so
them.
if what Matt is saying, if inflation gets people rich because the common folk
Opportunity.
dollar doesn't go as far, and so the wealthy beast that has the dollar stack still go in and buy everything. I kind of get it, like the rich buy in a down market.
That's why he didn't say the
with
poor get rich. He
inflation-
said the rich get richer.
I think where he was going with that.
Yeah, where is he going with that?
Okay, so he's always debt. He wants you to get debt, and to get good debt, look. So I like cash flow, debt levered real estate. That's part of my largest chunk of net worth is in that. And the reason I say it in those terms is because the debt levered part means that I have a short position on the dollar, meaning I actually have like the interest rate, the inflation rate is higher than the interest rate I'm making. So I'm actually making money on the debt. So the debt actually has a positive. So on the rental properties that myself and others own, like the bigger asset to that, you could argue, is the actual mortgage and not the rental property itself.
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki has taught this, and the term that is used for that return of income is inflation-induced debt destruction, meaning that if I got a loan today, can you imagine how cheap the dollar's going to be that I'm paying the last loan off in 30 years? It's nothing.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
Talk to anyone that's that's paid off their whole mortgage, and it's like a couple $100, and it's like a really expensive house. Our uncle in San Antonio, has lived in the same house that he bought over more than 30 years ago, and he paid it off, and it was like now it's worth a ton of money, but his note payment was like a few $100.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
so
like
was
a
our
joke.
parents. I remember. It was,
Yeah, so that's inflation-induced debt destruction.
And we had that a past few years. That's why people were screaming. Dan Pena was one. Get the money now. It's cheap. It's cheap money. And if you could get it locked in, yeah, exactly. Because the money, my goods and services, I'm going up with those prices, but I'm still stuck at that low note.
Oh, it's amazing to have debt
So there's-
over. Yeah,
When
I
it's
mean,
going
that's
this
happy why
direction.
putting the debts on the tiny houses and stuff. It's much
Yeah.
better to
So-
be in debt and inflation. I did know that rule.
We have in 2008 we had a financial crisis and we papered over it, and we checked into a monetary roach motel by starting doing quantitative easing. We talked about that
That's
in
actually
previous episodes.
Yes.
And so now that we've got the financial markets addicted to quantitative easing, like I don't think the Keynesian argument is you can have that and then wean yourself off of it and go back to normal. But the Austrian argument is you can't. And I don't think we ever can. And so when you're saying, yeah, we're going to have rising interest rates and people don't buy a house based on the price of the house, they buy based on their monthly payment. And so when interest rates go up, how much house they can buy shrinks.
Smaller.
And so you're right. If that happens and if we have austerity and we have honesty, and we default on debt and we raise interest rates and we do the right thing, I think you're right. We're going to have a massive a crash in housing, but I don't think we're going to do that. I think that
What happens when people can't pay their bills, though?
I think that the Fed is going to cry uncle, and I think the stimmy checks. I think we're going to have stimmy checks.
Wow.
You made a
then we're
joke on the
throttling
last
up.
podcast. I didn't realize you were being serious. So this is part of the Jerome Powell's trying to slide in between a very small space to balance. Is that you really think we might go back to stimmy checks if shit hits the fan?
So the Federal Reserve wants to control both employment and inflation. So if we started to go into, it's called stagflation when you have a depression and high inflation, and the old school Keynesian book of economics says doesn't exist. Well, it clearly does, but so if we start to get a stock market crash, if the stock market's down, I can't remember what's today, Thursday. Well, last week Friday we closed like just shy of 20% down off the highs, which would have defined us as a bear market. So we'll see how it goes this week. But the stock market's down. How much more pain can we take in the stock market before the Fed's going to be like, all right, we're going to go back to printing money? I don't think very much. I don't, because everybody's retirement is in the stock market. All of the entire public, like the default thing you do when you get a job is save money 401k, and then they put it in 401k jail where you can't get it until you quit. And what do they do with it? They put it in the stock market. So the entire American public's invested in the stock market. We can only take so much pain before they're going to crank up the printing press. Let's not forget that, what are we, $30 trillion in debt? Like the U.S. government, are they going to default? Like the U.S. government won't be able to pay its interest rate on its bills. So we can't, like the defaulting is the honest way to go about it, the debt that we can't afford to pay. Most of the time they choose default
Just
by
print more money.
default by inflation. It's the dishonest way to default because you're still paying your debts. You're just doing it with cheaper money, and you're robbing from the public to print. So I think whether we have a really big deflation before we have really big inflation, I don't know. But I'm curious what
they went on to say is they went into quantitative easing. They mentioned the 401ks. But I do, when you said
so you've actually listened to that whole thing.
Yeah, there's just
so she has all the answers.
there's just
Did the
7
homework.
minutes left because he built it up to introduce the guy that's going to talk about it. But they went into quantitative easing. They discussed the 401ks and this. But I believe he also said, because right away you're like, well, Robert Kiyosak, he's a friend of debt. He actually made the point, though, I think it was him that was like, we're a society of capitalism, and that's incorrect, actually. It's debtism, but since people don't like saying debtism, it's creditism, and we stopped producing as a country and became consumers of consumer creditors, basically. Like we basically consume on debt or consume on with credit. So we're no longer producing goods. We're just consuming with credit.
All of this is really interesting because we're poking in the dark, and I'm not on your level, man. I don't have the insight you have. I can follow you a little bit, but what I've learned from the past 3 years is nothing makes any sense that it made in my grandfather's time or my dad's time or even the first half of my life. Things are occurring at a rapid rate now. The best thing you can do is watch this at a moment's notice, be ready to pounce on opportunity, because in a state of confusion, somebody who knows what they want stands a good chance of getting it. That's from the movie Duck You Sucker. Quentin Tarantino was inspired by that. But anyway, that's true. If you're ready to go, you have some value, whether it's silver, gold, money, Bitcoin, whatever it is, wait for those opportunities because we're in uncertain times. It's crazy.
Well, he kind of contradicts himself because what he's saying is they're using inflation to get richer, right? But he's saying, but at the same time, he's making, okay, there's a lot of things I didn't like about what he said. One of which was he's just referring to the real estate market. Well, anybody knows or anybody in real estate has heard the three most important things in real estate are location, location, and location. So, yeah, I mean, if you go buy a bubble market, and I don't know what LA's doing or New York, or if you go buy these markets that are in bubbles, yeah, I mean, a terrible property, you're buying the top, you probably are going to get crushed. But there's more linear markets. Texas has better markets that don't rise as fast, they don't fall as hard. So I don't like.
He made the point that your tenants won't be able to pay the rent. I don't know. What do you think about that? I mean, actually, on that note, I know what I would think on that, which I don't think a lot of people are aware. But as landlords, just for an example, in the state of California,
a moratorium on eviction.
The moratorium on eviction was pushed into I think until next, if you wanted to evict somebody right now, you wouldn't, and they basically refused to leave, you wouldn't get to go to court with them until next year or either 18 months from now. So landlords in blue states that have very friendly laws for tenants can wait up to a year or two to even get the courtroom to hear your case. Now you're literally in court trying to get someone out that doesn't want to pay. And I know we laugh, but I used to live 10 years in Los Angeles. One of my best friends is a 77-year-old elderly woman. And she's doing this right now. She's refusing to leave and waiting for them to pay her off and stuff. And I told her, but someone that owns the asset, what is it like to own something and you pay for it? And then you're like, hey, for whatever reason you want your property back, you can't have access. So in more Republican states, like in the state of Texas and many others, you have the right to actually, do the normal process. You have 30 or 60, 90 days to leave. And then, thankfully, Russell, am I correct? If they don't leave on the day they're actually supposed to, the sheriff will then assist you to remove them from the property. Am I correct?
In which state?
In Texas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
you
but
can get the sheriff.
So that's the
pretty
difference
quick.
of buying your real estate and making sure you're buying in the
right location.
Yeah.
What happens if you can't get any rent money? You lose your house. I bet the government will come in and evict them.
Okay.
Why
government just going to let people just chill in the house?
Yeah, in California, they let people chill. They're not paying. They're chilling.
What about the person that owns the house loses it? I'm not getting any rent money. I can't make the payment. I don't have the house.
That's literally how. I mean, that's happened in so many landlords across the world, and it just depends on the state's legislation.
Okay, well,
but the government doesn't come take your house. They're in defaulting to the mortgage company.
Okay.
And they're just doing the same banking disaster they did in 2008.
They can't do anything.
No, they can't. I used to modify mortgages that were in default.
So here's another thing I didn't like about what he said is he's talking about inflation and the rich using inflation to get richer. What is real estate? It's a packaged commodity. It's got all of the commodities, copper, lumber, it's all built into the house. And then it also has labor. So it's like a great package of an inflation basket, that you could just, and if you paid cash, then you remove the risk of getting foreclosed on if your tenants don't pay rent. And it's only going to be a brief period of time if it's where, let's say you're debt levered. I think it's going to be a brief period of time where, nominally speaking, with inflation, everything's going to go up. And even though people's salaries will lag, it'll only be a brief period of time where you can get a tenant that'll actually be able to make the note payment. So if you have hard money to bridge the gap, I think you'll be able to get through that. But let's say you're buying in a good location that doesn't have a cyclical market. So now you remove the risk of default. And what could be a better inflation hedge he's saying inflation. What could be a better inflation hedge than a packaged commodity with an element of labor? It sounds, so that's a lot of, I think he contradicts himself a lot.
I think the person that probably edited that together is just trying to get people to watch their YouTube show. It worked for me. I was like, this is so great. This is epic. I've got to play this little podcast. But now that we're breaking it down, I'm like, you're right.
So there's
just a whole lot of fluff in that.
I listen to a lot of Rich Dad.
And music in the background. Boom, boom.
He does this thing where he always blames the rich people. It's like no matter what, it's the rich people's fault. So this is like the one
guy?
Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki. He's the Rich Dad Poor Dad is the book he wrote.
He's trying to help you become a rich person.
Yeah, but he always it's just like the rich people's fault. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a thing he does.
I think he's saying that the rich people know how to play the game.
Yeah, but I always thought that he said the game was debt. Like Donald Trump's a great example. Like the guy's, he made all his wealth in debt. But
As long as you're buying assets, things that make more money.
Or the trick is to have really good debt, really low interest rates.
So the only financially responsible thing I've ever done is that I don't have any debt, and now you're telling me that that's wrong.
That's what rich people use, yeah. But see, the difference
other people's
is
money to get rich.
I guess that's what explains why I am where I am.
Do you know who Dave Ramsey? Pay off all your debt, cut up your
buzzkill.
Yeah,
but I know Dave Ramsey.
So Dave Ramsey. So most people
that's not sexy.
He's so opposite of law of attraction. It's just kidding. I mean, he's so practical.
Most people really struggle with debt, credit card debt in general. So it's really good to do what you do and pay it off. But if you can use the judo move of debt in your favor, you can use it to create a lot of wealth.
And the judo move is buying an excavator
assets
that allows you to do more work and get more money, and then buying another piece of a machinery that allows you to break into a new market and make more. If you're buying things that expand your horizon and bring you more money, you keep playing that game and it goes really high. But if you're buying jet skis and Hummers and tanks that maybe you can't afford and derping with them, then you go down. Yeah. If you're buying them with debt.
Let's just assume that you can rent out a rental property and it pays the mortgage and for 30 years, which I mean people have done it. There's no reason to think you couldn't do it. Who actually paid the interest on that debt?
The renter.
Yeah, exactly.
Your tenant. Yeah, it is actually, I do like real estate because I feel like it's something that's ground for your average Joe to buy their way into wealth. I mean, there's lots of stories where that's how people became millionaires.
I don't know. So a lot of cautious people might think that, and maybe it sounded like what they were trying to say is that we do have big inflation. And Thomas Jefferson may have said this as well in that quote that I read, by inflation and then deflation, you wake up homeless. So they can have, the Federal Reserve can jack up interest rates and just make things really painful, and everyone's going to go and foreclose.
It's a window of opportunity.
Everyone forecloses, and then they kick on. And it's not until the banks own all the property.
It's a double punch.
Segues into what you were saying.
The banks could take all the property this way by jacking up interest rates, creating a depression, everyone defaults, and then they own all the property, and then they can go back to printing money. But here's the thing. I don't know, can they really do that when you have so many people take to the streets? Like, it feels like mob rule, if they screw too many people. Because, right now, when they just do, Wells Fargo does, one little thing, and then it's all this big deal. Someone files a lawsuit, and they correct it. So I don't know.
That gets you to what you wanted to talk about today briefly, because we still have another topic, which is you'll own nothing and be happy. to the Klaus Schwab in Switzerland this week, which is kind of on par. If they do want to buy up real estate so we could rent it from them, then maybe the inflation is intentional.
So the baddies are in Geneva, Switzerland, the Davos group.
Yeah, Davos, Switzerland.
And they're organizing the Great Reset and the Build Back Better, and they're orchestrating the collapse of our culture and economy so that we can build it back better. We need to crash this. We need everything to collapse.
Oh, so they can take the reins.
You can't build something back without destroying it first.
Yeah, I wonder how
and
public
Bill
they
Gates
make
has
that
got
chat.
Sarcasm again.
Bill Gates has got a monkeypox vaccine for you guys. Maybe I shouldn't have said the V word. He's got some medicine for that monkeypox. Hey, good news. I did hear a doctor on a radio show today say that if you have a good immune system, the monkeypox actually isn't that bad at all.
Isn't it mostly translated by sex?
Yeah.
Okay.
That or
so
prairie dogs. I used to actually have
Sex
prairie
with hair
dogs.
prairie dogs or
Wait.
No,
by
th-
prairie
like,
You're
dogs?
talking
I-
about monkeypox? Because
Yeah.
how is this going to be how are we going to have a lockdown if it
sexually
spreads by sex?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not like everyone's just going out. Like,
That's why
celibacy belt.
Dad and I were laughing about that today. Yeah, I'm like, once I heard that, I was like, this is nothing. Then
that's a lockdown's only going to help spread it.
Yeah, right. Everybody's locked in together. Well, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
that or yeah. So
I don't buy that. It's got to be a.
I got. Yeah, no, go back and listen.
This isn't necessarily the big one they're pushing on us. This is just another thing that's out there.
Yeah.
This isn't, there's going to be something down the pike.
Before we jump
that's
into
serious.
the Texas shooting, Russell, who was arrested in Davos? Am I saying it right?
James O'Keefe, I tried to look that up, but Project Veritas guy, I couldn't verify that.
And it wasn't. They were trying to determine if it was the actual Switzerland police that did it,
Or
or
if
was
it's
it
like-
Klaus Schwab's personal security.
Or Bill Gates.
For those that don't know, the Great Reset Guy, these are the people that are not elected officials that are just, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. They're just people that are getting together talking about how they would like to control us, which, hey, I guess in no way are they breaking any law, and I want them to exercise their free speech, but at the same time, we literally know it's a bunch of the richest, wealthiest people in the world talking about injecting things into us, and you think, oh, Beth, I'm crazy. No, there's like videos of them saying, we want to inject things into human beings and control them.
So the bad part is they're actually drafting documents and treaties with the UN to where they're like have legitimate governmental power, and these are just literally rich people that were not elected to nothing.
And yet there'll be this whole slew of minions that are going to say, that's what we need.
And well, it's
With
even
some
worse.
unelected people, some group like that know, like they choose how much access the public gets to this Davos group. It sounds.
It's also bad that no news the only news outlet that I saw covering it is Rebel News. Without them, I wouldn't even know they're meeting.
Who's Rebel News?
I watched them on Instagram. I think they're
They're
out
covering
Australia.
it. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, Rebel News, they're great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's there, and but without him,
Until he
I
gets
wouldn't
arrested.
even know that it's happening. And so that's really sad that we aren't covering it. But it's okay. You know, we got our tinfoil hats on at this table, guys. Give it 6 months or 2 years, and then y'all know.
It won't be tinfoil then. That's what's so crazy about the last 3 years. Stuff that you thought
Okay.
was so bizarre is happening.
Okay. You could get a cough or cold through sexual contact. I'm just trying to
He's reading
debunk
about
your.
the-
Sorry,
he's
guys.
No, it's it's
That's called a queef, not a cough.
Oh, nice.
All right, so should I jump us into obviously what's I want to talk about this week until next week because it'll be less of a harder topic to discuss the Texas gun shooting. You're looking at us. We're talking to you from Texas. Actually, grew up in Uvalde. Every summer we go there, so I'm quite familiar with Uvalde. I want to open up a conversation about guns. Obviously, there's some gun owners in the room. I'm not one myself. I'd like to have a conversation that really try to. No, I don't, Rex, own a gun. So
I think the first thing we need to do is we need to talk about, because maybe a lot of people aren't listening or know about Texas, and they're going to assume since we're in Texas we would know, was this a victim disarmament zone? And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, yes, it had to be. The government creates these victim disarmament zones. The only school I've seen that was not a victim disarmament zone is in Fayetteville, Texas, and they've got a sign out front that says our teachers are armed.
I'm going to shoot you, yeah.
We don't. I don't think they're big enough to have a police department.
I don't
But
even think people know that's an option. Okay, we're going at this hard already.
All right,
from
No,
an
but
angle.
you got to frame this the correct way, because you can't create a problem with these soft targets. It's not like this guy went to some mall in Texas where people can have firearms. He went to the one place where people are disarmed. So we create this vacuum of arms by disarming all these people, and this keeps happening. It's ridiculous.
I don't know squat about real estate, so you're not going to keep me out of this conversation, okay? This one I have an opinion on.
Good.
And it was, the last big one was in New York State, where I'm from. And I've always been very frustrated. I'd love to move back there, but I won't because of the low laws and whatnot. And I thought it was interesting that the guy shot up a grocery store in New York State, because he could do that there. If he tried that in Texas, someone would have taken him out. There would have been a concealed carry that would have taken him out. To your point, I thought it was interesting that, there is a shooting in Texas, but they went to a gun-free zone and took on children.
And a gun school free zone. So apparently
Exactly.
some Texas school lets you know they're strapped.
Fayetteville,
They
Texas.
do.
That's the only one I've ever seen, and they're in a unique situation where they don't have a police department. I don't know how many schools are like that, and
Well, the fact of the matter is, like, in a gun-free zone, quote unquote, and you see those in Austin with stores that say this is a gun-free zone. I'm like, why don't you just put "rob us" on the front of the store? It's like the law-abiding citizens are not going to be carrying guns, but a criminal doesn't care. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand.
Well,
Yeah.
but the people that created the problem, now I know it's not the federal government, but they're the ones proposing solutions, but just government in general created this problem. But guess what? They have a solution for us too.
Get rid of the guns.
Well, yeah.
Well, the
Guns.
government solution is, we have an emotional topic, never let a good crisis go to waste. And
So it's
versus looking at this from a
the most concise way I can think of putting it is the only thing that stops a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. And when you remove all of the guns out of any given area, then a bad person with a gun isn't going to be stopped very easily.
so
Which you
that's
just saw.
black and white, what you just said.
But
I like
And the
that.
only
That gets
thing
straight to
that's
the
as
point.
old as these school shootings are the same arguments that everybody on both sides keeps beating. And the sad fact of the matter is that no one is having a discussion right now. They're screaming from emotion, and it's really sad. I want to puke, honestly. When I saw the news, I just want to throw up. It was the same thing with Sandy Hook years ago. When I saw that,
Yes.
I wanted to throw up. The feeling in my stomach is I want to throw up. I'm the only person at this table with kids, but even if you didn't have kids, I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that. It's the most innocent part of our society meeting the grossest part and being devoured, and it just makes me want to throw up. And what's really sad is it's true. Nobody's having a discussion right now. Everybody's screaming from emotion. Nobody's using logic. And they're not going to hear any logic right now because everybody's from emotion.
So that's what I wanted to propose before Russell jumped in is I want to try to have a conversation that people haven't had already many times after the mini school shootings. And I think we've done really good in like 5 minutes, stated the biggest points that need to be made, which is no legislation from an emotional standpoint should ever stand. In fact, no life decision should ever be made from an emotional state of mind. Russell made the obvious that you could do all the laws you want. Law-abiding citizens will not be armed, and the crooks will have them. The bad powers that be. I actually have something to read. I don't know if I want to read it now or later. I'll read it now. I guess.
I do have solutions. Or I mean, you asked, but
Okay. Yeah. Well, then what's your solutions? And then I'm going to read something for us.
so Fayetteville's the solution. But I'm not saying we need to force teachers or coaches to carry, but I would say make it really easy to. And by that, so first just allow them, make it legal, get rid of the victim disarmament zone, just make it like as bare minimum like a shopping mall or like the regular public. So I think that a lot of teachers would view it take it upon themselves to either carry on their person or have a instant access safe somewhere where only they could access it with a code. And to make it even easier, we could I think if you wanted to get the state involved with this, a state solution would be to use funding for training. And Texas already has a concealed carry course you can take. That's like something that's already recognized by the government. We could just say anyone who teaches can get that for free, and on top of that, we can even pay them their salary rate for however long that takes.
Let me ask you. I'm sorry. I want to ask you a question. Is there a solution to the price of fuel right now?
Well, how would you define solution? Lower prices?
Open up drilling, open up pipelines.
So you're talking about you want lower prices.
I'm just saying. I'm saying the point. There's a very easy solution to lowering the price of fuel right now.
Okay, yeah.
They don't want to lower the price of fuel right now. You can throw out all the solutions you want to shootings. They don't want a solution to shootings.
They want more shootings.
This is where
Yeah,
I'll bring out my foil hat thing. This is where I can finally put some history in here. 1939, the Germans captured Polish people, dressed them up as German soldiers, shot them, and then put their bodies along the Polish border. And then the Germans claimed that these were German soldiers that had been murdered by Poles. The German people were infuriated. They demanded retribution. Voila, World War II. The fact of the matter is, I can't say how or what, but we're going to see more shootings, and they don't want them to stop because they have got to get disarmament. This is the powers that be, the people sitting in Switzerland right now. They have got to disarm the population, and we're the last real
And
population.
mass shootings are the way to do it.
I don't think that
Abso-freaking-lutely.
they're
This is-
orchestrating it. I think they're letting it happen and playing on these. They're like, oh, great, a massacre. We're going to use this.
Of course, but I'm saying they are absolutely, because this is getting so insane that people are going to be so outraged that there's going to be a huge outcry and
Screaming.
and so we will finally save you. We've got to get down on this horrible NRA people. It's going to.
So all of these mass shooters are on SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So
no one addresses that.
well, should we blame
Kind
the
of are.
pharmaceutical companies?
Absolutely. No,
So,
because
I like-
they blame the NRA. It says the NRA is not involved. It's the pharmaceutical. Every single shooter is on some kind of a mood altering.
And
drug.
it's I like how Russell's hard approach is basically common sense. I wouldn't think like he went fast and hard to just arm the people, because what that's saying is we're not going to solve the other problem, which is the mental illness or the all of the mental happiness levels of the culture rot, the crisis of tribalism. All of these things aren't going to be solved. So the only thing we can solve for in a society that's mentally ill, it's not just this one guy. I mean, we all know there's like thousands behind him,
If you
people
think
who are
if you
mentally
think we
ill.
can keep the guns out of schools, consider that the government can't keep the drugs out of prison.
No, that's it. Okay. Wow, Russell, you're pure logic and genius. I'm so happy
And
you're saying that.
And not only that, like let's say, I mean, Uvalde, we've been there. You could probably assume at best they could have like a metal detector with 2 or 3 guys. So what does that really mean? Now you've got 2 or 3 guys that you can use the element of surprise to take out with a bad person can use to take out with a firearm. Now you just have access to everyone that you know is disarmed after you passed by the 3 guys operating the metal detector. So that's like even if you try to have these really strict security measures in a place like Uvalde, they just don't have the resources.
Oh, that's why you're pro the teachers should be strapped,
yeah.
or if somebody on campus could be
That's why
strapped.
I've always been more a fan of concealed carry than open carry. Leave the element of question.
I like having the decision.
An
like,
armed
you take the
society
leadership.
is a polite society.
I want to know what y'all's thoughts are on opposing views, though. What about somebody that says we just need to ban all the guns?
We need to
to
shoot
10-year
them.
federal prison, and we're going to ban guns, and we're just going to get rid of them, like Australia, England,
Okay,
and Japan. Yeah. Okay, so what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, can I read? I think I should read my thing then, because this is what I would like to say to those
go
people.
ahead.
Or whatever. Okay, so this is from JP Spears, Awaken with JP on YouTube. He actually first did a gun video in 2017 or 19, and then he changed his mind, like we all should admit when we think we are wrong or when we've evolved in our thinking, and he made a different gun video. And in the end, he makes this point. Every time a government disarms their population, they always tell them they are doing this for your protection. But the government doesn't say, now, you can't protect yourself from us. Hold on, let me get my computer so I can read it over this arm. We can either look at history and learn from it and do things better, or ignore it and repeat the same patterns. Sometimes history teaches us that anytime a government takes away the people's guns, catastrophes follow. It is a true pattern in history. For example, consider these shocking historical facts about when a government disarms a population. In 1911, Turkey established gun control. Then, from 1915 to 1917, 1.5 million Armenians unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. In 1929, the Soviet Union established gun control, and from 1923 to 1953, 20 million citizens unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. China established in 1935, then gun control. Then from 48 to 52, 20 million political dissidents unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Germany established gun control in 1938. Then from 1939 to 1945, a total of 13 million Jews unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Cambodia established gun control in 1956. Then in 1975 to 1977, 1 million educated people unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Guatemala established gun control in 1964. From 64 to 81, 100,000 Mayan Indians unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. Uganda in 1970 established gun control. From 71 to 1979, 300,000 Christians unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated, making for a total of 56 million people were rounded up and exterminated in the 20th century because of gun control. I think this point is relevant because it's not saying, well, that's in dark ages or in past times. This is the 20th century. Those are all governments, and those are all times that you could look at those quickly after gun control measures were made.
But
A tyrannical government made
I can offer
moves.
the devil's advocate view here. France, is anybody being rounded up and exterminated
I was gonna
now?
get that
And
too.
Japan, is anybody being
Australia.
rounded up?
Well, Australia is the perfect example, though. If you take Australia, China, and a lot of these, North Korea, Australia, look at in China specifically, because now they're actually, locking people in their homes and starving to death.
starting to get weird.
It's starting to get weird. But Australia this year, it's starting to get weird. And so weird that we don't talk. It's weirder that our cultures aren't talking about it, but we're not really getting a lot of video on it. And even weirder, Australians don't think it's weird, but we just saw what they went through with COVID. I mean, you were literally arrested and getting fined for leaving your house. I mean, at nighttime, you can't even walk. I mean, who
Yeah.
wants to live in a
But-
society where you can't walk in the park at
But
9
if they
p.m. to
tried
walk
to
your
implement
dog?
that here, would we shoot them? I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if that, I mean.
But it's the little control I think they're able to take because
Okay.
it's a disarmed society. Because remember, a lot of those years, it took 10 years, 15 years after they disarmed their societies.
This comes back to the thing that I always say to you, Rex, and you keep bringing it up, is my fruit fly theory. And I get tired. I just get tired of saying this and thinking this, but things don't happen fast enough for us to see the whole story. We don't live long enough. And somebody would use the excuse, they would say, well, France and England and all these places that don't have the guns we have, they're doing just fine. For now. And you're a fruit fly, and you're going to live maybe 100 years. But history, and that's not even that old a history right there. But if you look at all of history, it has ups and downs, and there's really ugly sides to it. And this is an ugly side of this coin, a school shooting. It's horrible. There's also another side that comes, and it may not come in your lifetime. It may be your grandchildren's lifetime, where they're going to say, why the hell did you give up our freedoms? Because now we are being marched into a camp. Now, they say that's so far-fetched, but really, in the last 3 years, is anything far-fetched?
With the current meeting that we discussed today in Switzerland really happening and just seeing the overreach during COVID, is it really that far-fetched? And okay, I also want to play this then. On our second podcast, it's our first podcast, we brought up the idea that our founding fathers never intended for us to have a military. And a lot of people are like, am I understanding you correctly, Beth? And, Rex explained to us that, like,
You can unplug
I don't think
this.
that's my phone.
It's your computer.
Whose phone is it?
Oh, I don't know what
Beth.
it is. I'm fixing to use it, though. So play it. Okay, so anyway, we weren't supposed to have a standing military, and people are like, is that what you mean? Yes. In fact, after each war, we were to disband our military because a military could be used to turn against its people. And people are like, oh, well, we wouldn't do that. But we literally have a sitting president now, and I want to play it because I don't think he's actually aware of that the founding fathers set up our country where we're not supposed to have a military. And the fact that we do, because after World War II, we never disbanded the military when we created the industrial military complex. I don't think he actually put two and two together. Like, we weren't set up for you to threaten us with our own military. And then I want to play this clip.
I think that
It's just
no one said it yet.
it's just a 30-second
The
clip.
definition of what you described as democide.
Is that when the government uses the military against them, or
It's death by government. I can read. It's do you want? I got the definition if you want it.
please?
The intentional killing of an unarmed or disarmed person by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity and pursuant to government policy or high command. That's democide. And it's the largest killer of humans ever. Like, what's the largest killer? It's democide. Like, so it's like
Interesting.
if we want to focus on what the biggest threat is, but how many people die, it's her computer.
Sorry, guys.
Democide kills more humans than anything.
That's actually
Cars are second.
really interesting. So
Not-
if we really value human life, because that's what and I don't mean to mock that sinner or whoever talking, but he was playing on people's emotions. If we really care about human life, then we would actually say, wow, we should do everything we can to avoid democide.
That's a very important fact right there. Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, thank you.
Own them. And I might add The Second Amendment, from the day it was passed, limited the type of people who could own a gun.
Where did you get that
and
from?
what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon.
Yeah, you
Those
could.
who say the blood of patriots, you know, and all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on
Here
the
it is.
government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
Oh, like
Point
Ukraine,
is
right?
that There's always been.
Ukraine, where they
Okay,
were passing
so-
out guns to common citizens and they're holding off the Russian army.
So-
Okay, Joe. Yeah, they need F-15s and nukes.
Yeah, and I don't think he realized we have a literal sitting president saying you don't need guns because you can't fight the military anyway. It was never set up that way. We were to have a militia and the right to bear arms as individual people, and those two regulated each other. We shouldn't even have a military yet, lest be threatened by one.
And where does he pull this stuff from, though? Just hold on a second. Grandpa just said that the Second Amendment from the beginning he just says it like it's fact, and
now-
people believe it.
the ones
Where
who are
is it
listening to
written?
him,
You can have
not.
a cannon. Trust me, you could then, and you still can today with zero paperwork. You can have a Revolutionary War cannon. You can make one in your garage, 100% legal. What is he talking
You
about?
haven't been listening to Joe. Obviously, the Second Amendment has always been and is now about hunting and nothing else.
Oh, yeah.
You mean it
that's
wasn't
right.
about democide?
He says deer, they don't wear bulletproof vests,
That's
so they
true.
always try and make it
Hey,
about
man,
hunting.
it's
Yeah,
common
no,
sense.
it's actually. I'm glad we're talking about
Like
the-
y'all,
the
you just
worst
need a
topic
single shot
ever, but-
rifle to kill a deer.
Yeah, well, who said anything about deer?
Yeah, you brought up hunting. The Second Amendment ain't about hunting.
Right.
I mean, well, they realized that people were agrarian back then, and they lived in rurally. That hunting was a presumption. I mean,
We didn't need to protect that.
that's
We
how-
have to do it. That's like banning
how-
spoons.
Exactly. That's how people put food on their table. No one said you needed to.
We need to make sure we put a bill in there protecting forks, knives, and spoons because we use those things.
So Russell Brand I always like him because, on quantum bombs, I do want to bring us to a higher thought process. And he was, so we know I'd say 25% of the world's population understands why America holds to their guns, right? And if you were evaluating our conversation right now, you'd say it's fear of government democide or taking over, right?
Clinging
Fear
to that
of
Bible and gun.
losing our rights as individuals. So then how do we make a world where, because he was trying to find the common ground, like how do we make a world where there's less fear of tyranny from government?
Well,
There's
yeah.
always-
So how do you enlighten 100% of the population, not 99? Because all it
There you
takes is like
the minute
Yeah.
you have someone in power, they will, whether it's a large group or a small group, but they will separate and they will oppress you or put you into some form
Well,
of slavery
power
or
corrupts.
do
Here's what's
genocide.
Power
funny.
corrupts,
No one,
absolutely.
actually, no one believes in gun control. They just believe in gun distribution, where they should be. Because no one, we don't get rid of guns. We don't. I've been all over Europe. There's lots of guns in the hands of the government and the people in charge. Here in America, the common people have guns, but guns aren't going anywhere.
Well, I think what you're saying is, and it's good to frame it this way, is that they're advocates of monopolies, and
yeah, they want all the guns.
they want They want a monopoly on force.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And if you start this conversation before they know they're getting into a gun debate, you just be like, "Are you against monopolies?" Like, yeah, they're bad. Be like, are you sure you're against all kinds of monopolies? Yeah. Be like, well, then you wouldn't be for gun control because that just
It's a
puts a monopoly
monopoly.
on force.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, all these getting together and having group parties get together where you talk about your plans or your political ideas, you want to change things, it all sounds great. But if the powers that be oppose you, they're not going to write you a sternly written letter. They're going to show up in SWAT vehicles with guns in your face and put you on the ground and make you do what they want you to do.
So Rex,
Yeah.
Rex did a quote. I'm curious where that came from.
What's
You
that?
say it again.
one?
Absolute power.
Oh, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
You hear it so much, you never hear where it's from.
That's funny because I don't know where it's from.
Yeah.
But no,
It's probably one of those that don't have it's a quote, the unknown, because it's so common.
But
I was curious, Matt, how much ammo and guns is in the United States? Like we know that we're armed, but
Well, the
I know
ammo
there's
is
lots
in
of neat
the ammo
facts.
is in the trillions, and I own most of it. No, I'm just kidding. The ammo's got to be in the trillions of rounds.
I've heard 400 million guns and 12 trillion rounds of ammunition. That's just
Yeah.
a number I've heard thrown
Well,
out.
look at it this way.
400
that-
million
it?
guns
Let me-
and 12,
more guns than
12
people.
trillion
Well, there was
rounds?
3 guns per person.
Let me Oh, it's more than that.
Three guns per person. No, this is good to be said because
Well,
He
most
said-
people,
This is what-
I know a lot of people that own a lot
If
more
we're
guns than
trying
me.
to
Again, I just heard
understand.
that. I don't know.
Oh,
But
Well,
I
the
think
figure he-
people don't realize if we're trying to put the pieces together of why maybe the Great Reset and they're actually trying to disarm a society, I don't think people realize like we're really we're not really strapped, but like you said, it's maybe 3 guns per person. If it was evenly
Let me put
distributed.
this in perspective. So the Knob Creek machine gun shoot, which I don't think they have anymore, they just moved on, but they had that I think once a year or maybe twice. But anyway, one weekend, like a 3-day period, they would fire 12 million rounds of ammunition just for fun, shooting cans, junk cars, and stuff like that. 12 million rounds were fired in 3 days just for fun
Who is that?
at the Knob Creek machine gun shoot. That's where people just all across the country, they got machine guns and guns. They'd go together and just have a
I
big
see,
shoot 'em
I
up.
see.
And then CNN would take that footage and claim it was like Syria. It was funny because they said, "Oh, look, this Trump pulled out, and look, our allies are being attacked." And they actually showed footage of Knob Creek, and everybody that's been there looked at it and went, "Oh my God, that's us shooting in Kentucky."
But do you remember a few years ago you had some Russians at the farm for some, I don't remember what they were doing.
I never had any Russians. What are you talking about?
They were the friendly Russians. No, but I remember it was an interesting because they were they were,
I actually don't remember this. What are you talking about?
it was I don't know if it was something. It was a video.
YouTubers?
Yeah.
Oh,
And they were Russians.
crazy Russian hacker.
Was that what all right. But the fact of the matter is I had a conversation with one of the Russians, and they said that during the Cold War, the Soviet Union did a study. They took a section of the United States in the South, and they did math that if everyone in that section that owned guns had 4 rounds of ammunition, then it would render any paratroop invasion moot.
Say that again with the 4 rounds of
They said that
ammunition?
they said that basically, let's put it this way to simplify it, that if every American with a gun had 4 rounds of ammunition, the Soviet Union did a study that said that, and if we tried attack the United States with a paratroop attack, it would be overrun with civilians, armed civilians. It was actually a deterrent during the Cold War.
I remember
to
you
invasion.
telling me
World War
this.
II as well, I think.
Well, that was the
didn't wanna
Japanese
hit.
So
thing.
I
He
guess-
said behind every blade of grass would be a man with a rifle. The Japanese knew that. The ownership, the civilian ownership of firearms in the United States has been a deterrent to foreign invasion.
Actually, I think that's a fabulous topic. And the reason people, and maybe even on the left, may agree with me is
They're
it's a
screaming right
positive.
now.
It's a positive. Well, no, it's a
not listening.
positive point you're making when it comes to situations like Ukraine. It is positive to have an armed society because then you're not literally passing out. What do they call
They
them?
passed out a bunch of
ARs
guns.
to
AK-47s.
common citizens. Instead, you have
People who knew how to use them from
also
the
a
beginning.
good point that JP made in his video is you have law-abiding citizens that are very educated within most gun owners. Like you could try to stereotype us all you want, but you're getting to meet a few, and most gun owners are very, they take pride in owning one, and they do all the measurement and
They're trained. They use them. They know how to. Like for instance, like the Ukraine, they threw AK-47s into the hands of people who'd never used them before,
Right.
which was still effective.
Apparently.
But it's interesting that was their knee-jerk reaction. Quick, arm our citizens. And I said right then, the gun debate's over. I mean, why would you need military-style weapons? They just did it in Ukraine.
Hey, didn't
Shut
our
up.
Pentagon stop? Somebody was going to make a move to send some jet planes to assist Ukraine, and the Pentagon was like, nope, we're not sending those.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they did because they were like, "Oh, that's a big NATO no-no or something."
Well,
now
I think
Russia's going to get
Russia
upset.
said, okay,
Yeah, right. So I think it's funny. Joe just said to take on the government, you're going to need F-15s and nukes, but they didn't give them to him, but they did give them a bunch of guns.
Okay,
And
but what we're seeing in Ukraine, I don't know if you guys are watching the updated maps every day. People forget there's like a full all-on war going on
Right.
in eastern Ukraine right now. I'm sorry, I just let a brain fart. What point I was trying to make? What were you?
I used my brain power to shut you off. 'cause
You
cut
did.
me down.
I know.
He's manifested your silence.
You shall be quiet.
The F-16s that.
So we're finding out now that occupation is really important because they're taking over areas of land and they're having trouble occupying it, getting pushed out. Well, an F-16 is not going to help you occupy a street corner.
Right.
and someone with a rifle is. So like it's the whole point.
Well, that argument is so lame. Somebody told me once, they said, what do you think you want a gun like that for? I said, well, first of all, I don't plan on fighting the government. They said, but what if you're fighting the government? They got nukes. I'm like, oh, okay. Yes, sir. There's a couple rebels downtown New York City. Just send a tactical nuke in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to go well for your public, your PR.
But now we even have a modern war that shows you,
Yeah, they passed out get rifles to common people.
I do think that, thankfully, maybe 60% of our population may hear what he said and be like, that makes no sense. But because I lived in California and I have and love my friends that are more liberal mindset and don't know about guns, it sounded good what Joe Biden was saying. I mean, he was babbling a lot, but
hang on.
Yeah, why do we, we got F-15s.
Nukes.
You aren't going to get anywhere with your beer rifle.
Wait a minute. He's tough talking the federal government. They're so tough. Well, then how did a bunch of disarmed people dressed like QAnon shamans break into the Capitol? They almost overthrew the federal government, allegedly.
Or so they'll claim.
Yeah, so they
great
almost
insurrection.
The
Yeah, right.
insurrectionists didn't even have arms, much less than F-16.
They had a grandma that took a podium or something.
Grandma with her American flag almost took them down. Like, why would they need an F-16?
I'm tinfoil hatting on it was an inside job.
Of course.
Which one?
The January 6th.
Okay, is that Epps guy?
I honestly have put no time or effort thinking about it, and that's how much.
So the biggest indication of that would be the Epps guy. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a guy. Man, okay. I'd hate to have to look this up now, but so there's a guy that's on film. So you know how they're prosecuting all the people from J6 is with video evidence and all that, right? So there's a guy that's on film everywhere on January 6th, like, hey, we're going to go in the Capitol here. And he's just provocateuring the whole thing. We know who he is. He hasn't been arrested or charged.
Really?
Ray Epps.
And what's sad, I have heard this from my friend's mom, is that the people that are arrested, they haven't been let out. They've been on like complete lockdown, isolated hold, and for the January 6th thing.
So they haven't had trial yet?
And then no, like it's really sad and bad. It's not, for that.
I thought you had a right to a speedy trial.
It's bad. It's not
interpretation
lawful.
of it.
And then I was finding this out, like meanwhile, while all these other laws are being broken and, they were going to the the justice's house and like, man, we're really living weird law times. Like they're taking everyday people that decided to go out and protest and then like, I don't know. I didn't watch much of January 6th, nor do I care to debate it or talk about it. But we know that, like, compared to what we've seen rioting before, like people going to take a selfie in a hallway of a building and you're treating them like actual criminals.
That's
like they
what's
actually
weird about
intended to do something bad.
Preceding January 6th with months and months of literally burning cities.
Mostly
to the ground,
peaceful.
Where they did nothing. They did
yeah.
nothing. And then this one little day and they're acting like this is the end of the world. It's like, it's a hypocritical BS.
And
They
what I
almost took our
thought, now this
government
is
over
just,
Rex.
I want to delicately say this, but
Good luck.
because I don't want it to be misinterpreted. But when I was watching it, I thought, well, this is really good because if you have a problem with what's happening with our government, I would much rather have people go protest in front of a government building versus someone's personal neighborhood, or the businesses are also people's houses.
Well, there's a
and
difference between being in
businesses.
front of it and breaking into it.
Yeah, but I mean, again, there's that question of did they break into it as the security guards garnered them in? I don't know, and that's why I'm like, I don't care because we're never going to find the truth anyway. So it's just like I take the don't have time to even care about it. But I mean, putting anybody in jail and not giving them a trial or anything, they're in
Everybody
complete
needs a trial.
isolation.
Everybody should get a trial. Quick, too.
And then they could be like, dude, I was just there for the Instagram selfie.
Russell's dying to play something.
Well, I was until I saw it was 7 minutes.
Aware of the agent provocateur aspect of January 6th?
Say more.
I don't exactly know what the reality is, but what people are insinuating is that there was federal agents that were involved in instigating the violence, instigating the entering into the Capitol, and that there's this one guy in specific that they've got him isolated on video. They've shown him over and over again. He's faced no legal consequences. They know this guy's name. They know exactly who he is. All these other guys are in jail. All these other guys who got into the Capitol, I mean, there's so many of them are facing like these massive federal charges and 4 years plus in jail. This one guy is like, we have to go in there. We have to take back. We have to get inside there. And people start calling him a Fed in one of these videos. And I think he like takes off and runs away. But this is what it's.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
His name's Ray Epps. But yeah, provocateur.
Interesting.
Yeah, but yet grandma with the American flag, she's in the slammer riding away.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I actually didn't think it was that bad until Matt, you told me a friend of yours that was crossing the Canadian border was pulled over by the border people and said that we ran your plates, and we noticed that you went to a Trump rally.
Yeah, that's weird.
Before, and I mean that just
Did they do
it
that?
does
Did anybody go to a
hurt or
Biden
make
rally?
me- yeah, because I'm like, that's 50% of the country. It doesn't matter if you're pro or for Biden or Trump or
You're an
Clinton.
American citizen. You got
like
right
you're
to
an
an
American
opinion.
citizen going to a rally for one of the two people running for our presidency, and they literally told him that.
Okay, so they actually went to a Trump rally, right?
Yeah,
he went.
Okay, well, in places where they don't have firearms, such as Australia, police show up at your door just for being on a Facebook group that is associated with having anti-lockdown rally. That's not even going. They're just knocking. There's video. People are obviously videoing this
You
and putting it on.
liked that post. That's what they say. Like you liked that post, Russell.
Right, but
And they show
didn't-
up at your door
They didn't
over
leave the
liking their
house.
post?
Yeah,
Yes,
And what's the
Matt.
consequence? What do they do to you?
they're just snooping.
they want you
they're
to
trying to
know-
intimidate you.
Oh,
They
intimidation.
know. It's
I
George.
gotcha.
It's 1984.
I would ask them. I'd say, "Do you guys like where we living? I mean, you're getting paid for this, but is just something wrong with this to you? Because I just like some on social media, and you're wasting time in my house."
Oh, you can't.
Well,
talk
they're
about
just
it.
like,
the
we're
people get
letting-
off on it. They hire. We were talking about before. It's like the guards of the camps. They get off on the power.
Yep.
Oh God, well, they like the ones that were beat up in school, I guess.
We're like
think-
1982 in Australia right now, and they're just letting you know. But no, you are right, Rex. There are some people that may have enjoyed being an officer in.
So would it be
Nazi
safe
Germany.
to say that democide and all of these situations is all carried out by folks that haven't addressed their childhood trauma?
Yes, let's close it with that. Bring us back to the topic at hand.
But I want to say something. You just got. I had an aha moment. I think the cure to the fruit flyism is studying history. The only way you can get outside of your own little life is to know what the heck came before, and it's all there. They're trying to start. They turn down the statues. They're trying to. Somebody even said the reason they're not teaching cursive anymore is because all of our government documents, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, they're all written in cursive. Someday, no one will be able to read them, and you'll be able to tell people what they say. I mean, that's kind of down the road or whatever.
Wow.
But it's. I'm just saying is that the only way, and that's one of these things. And again, I would like to address this next time. We'll think about this: is the population and why we just know the population, but I have some information as to why it's a problem now and why it's different than it's ever been before.
Oh crap! We did forget
That's
about
all right.
that.
There will be.
We'll have more.
There will be another time. But all I'm saying is that people have got to know. Knowing the past is what gets you out of this fruit flyness. You've got to.
Wise men learn from the mistakes of others. Bert,
And then watch everybody else do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So normalcy bias. I think even if people do study history, it's like some different world or time to them. Like it's in black and white. It can't happen now because it's never happened in my lifetime. I think
They think it's going to happen verbatim.
I think normalcy bias is what stops people from learning the lessons of history.
Well, that and the fact that people see history based on current norms, and that's another big problem.
They didn't let the kids in schools learn what 9/11 was. There are young kids saying, we know it was bad, and we don't think we need to hear about it, especially we don't need to talk about who did it. That in schools, this is supported, Russell. 9/11, they don't let them see images. They don't talk about it. They don't, the gruesomeness, but we all live through it. We all know it's really important to know what happened.
Well, I heard that at the Alamo, and I need to go see this for myself, but that if you go to the Alamo now, it doesn't really talk much at all about the Battle of the Alamo. It talks about the Spanish mission, how it was a church, and talks about immigrants and all this stuff. And I'm like, when I was a kid and went to the Alamo, they talked about Davy Crockett and where he fell, and this is the line where the cannons were, and the Mexican army was over here, and yeah, it's just not that anymore. I heard that.
I need to do that because it wasn't. Yeah, well, it may be 20 years since I've been, so
We need to go.
I think I'd love to find out. I mean, because that's important.
Yeah.
And then you can raise a fuss if it ain't to your liking.
Oh, they'll hear about it.
Oh,
They will hear about it because I think that's an important analogy with what's going on, what's going on now and stuff about where we're heading and we can you want to end, but we can.
Oh no, you're good.
But no, I was thinking about that to say, what do you do? We talk about you can't take on the government and stuff like that. I think about the Alamo and go, they knew they were going to die, but at least they died. They died putting up a fight. And you know what Goliad is? You guys don't remember.
I just know that it's a city in Texas I visited for
That's a
its
sin
historical
in
purpose.
Texas. You don't know the Alamo.
No,
remember the Alamo.
It is, but the thing is, but you don't remember Goliad. Goliad, there was 400 men that surrendered to Santa Anna, and he murdered all of them. So we don't remember Goliad. We remember the Alamo because they resisted. They all died, but they died fighting. Goliad is basically forgotten because they surrendered and they were killed anyway.
Where was it? Goliad preceded the Alamo.
I can't remember. It was about the same time. It might have been slightly before, slightly after. But
I think it. If I had to guess, I would say it preceded the Alamo. And if they knew that's what happened to those guys, then they could only assume the same thing would happen to them. So therefore, it actually makes them less courageous because they're like, their death either way. I may as well go. I'm going to fight to the end because I have a better chance of survival because surrendering.
Find it. We're going to talk next time. We're going to bring this up. I'm going to look and find out which came first, Goliad or the Alamo.
I think
you're discrediting Texas history right here. I think you're kind of poo-pooing the courage of our brave.
And let's give Rex props. He's a New Yorker that knows Texas history. That's pretty impressive.
Well, it's important.
It's important,
because I'm a Texan now.
Oh, thanks. We're happy to have you.
We would not be sitting here right now if it wasn't for the Alamo.
That's true.
You would not have that
God
land
bless
south
Texas.
of town if it wasn't for the Alamo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. It's the ranch. Yeah, God bless Texas. And God bless the United States. Just felt like adding everybody else in.
That sounds racist. You can't say God bless the U.S.
Oh,
That's the
why is it
national
racist as opposed to offensive?
Well, because of our history.
Oh, I see. You're right.
You didn't know?
God bless all of humanity, and we will see you next time.
Here on Politically Correct Quantum Bombs.
Quantum bombs.